Hi folks, here's Paul Scorpin, one second. Okay, here's Paul Scorpin. I wanted to share something with you guys. I've been back here in Germany for about 2 weeks now, and back from a seminar travel that I led through Egypt. Okay, and this seminar travel was attended by only a handful of people, which fit this time. Last year, when I led a trip in Luxor all the way down to Aswan, I had 16 people and even a waiting list. And this year, for whatever reason, we were 6 altogether with me. And that meant that I had to replan it. I had to take the sailboat out of the picture because of the expense of that. And we added then 4 days in Cairo, which hadn't occurred to me, but it turned out to be the right decision. So what I did was I booked a hotel directly in front of the pyramids in Giza. It's actually quite incredible. There's just a handful of hotels in this price category where a number of rooms have a view of the pyramids, which are about 300 meters away. And the restaurants, of course, are on the top where you sit and have breakfast overlooking the pyramids with an unobstructed view. And you sleep in their presence and you wake in their presence, and you have the Sphinx staring right at you. And that was our base then for the days that we had there, and then we did day trips. And the day trips took us to Heliopolis, which was once the spiritual center of Egypt, and took us to Memphis, which was also a place of deep theology, and took us to a number of other places, including the Step Pyramids and the Red Pyramid and so forth. And we went there because of this book. This book was written by Stylianos Ateshelis, and I actually helped prepare it for print. It's called The Symbol of Life, Symbol des Lebens, and this was written about 30 years ago when I was with Daskalos, and it describes this picture behind me, the Kabbalah, the Christian Kabbalah, or the Tree of Life. And in this book that Daskalos put together towards the end of his life, he describes a past life of his in Luxor, in Karnak in Tebes. And there he shared a life with a young pharaoh called Akhenaten. Many of you know who Akhenaten is. He was the one who revisioned and revolutionized the Egyptian belief system, getting rid of all of the gods, and one of the people who believed that there was just one God, which was symbolized by the sun, which was already known to the people as Ra, the sun god. And Daskalos was a big fan of Akhenaten. And his enthusiasm for Akhenaten was contagious. And I was also very interested in Akhenaten, and thought that he prepared the way for monotheism and for the Christ, Jesus Christ, who became a sun when he went up Mount Tabor, and was a sun that was blinding. So that's a common theme in Christianity and the Egypt belief and the Hellenistic belief and also the Roman belief. And even last year with the trip that we took last March in Luxor, it was eye-opening in as much as we went to the Karnak temple, which was one time the biggest temple in the world, replaced now by Göbekli Tepe, where we'll be in October. and Shahala. And I wanted to connect with Akhenaten and his theology. And instead, we were all shocked to see that the belief system that existed before Akhenaten and after Akhenaten spoke much more to us in many ways than a monotheistic explanation of the world. So we connected with what's called the 9 gods of Heliopolis, and we connected also with the lion-headed god Sekhmet, and we connected with Hathor, and we connected with Horus, and we connected with, and the connection has grown now over the last year. And again, though, I planned this trip a couple weeks ago based on this book and based on this symbol. And lo and behold, as fate would have it, we experienced something totally other than we expected. And what we experienced was, instead of studying the tree of life in Egyptian, we actually traveled through it. We lived it. So, why do I say that, or how can I say that, and how can I explain it? Many of you know the story about the 4 siblings, Osiris and Isis and Set and Nephis. They're part of the nine gods, and they're 2 sisters and 2 brothers, married with each other, ultimately. And many of you know that Osiris was dismembered by his brother Set, who wanted to take over, wanted to rule over Egypt as Osiris was growing old. And he cut him into pieces, as one of the story goes, and 14 pieces, and spread those over the landscape of Egypt. And there's a belief that these 14 pieces were the cornerstones of 14 temples. Exactly how that is, I can't say, but I can tell you that I experienced that there is a great mystical truth to that. And what Egypt offers us when you go to Egypt and connect with this old Egyptian belief system which developed over 12,000 years, probably in connection with Atlantis, you're experiencing one of the deepest and most profound theologies and mysticism that this world offers. Equal to India, equal to Buddhism, surpassing many of these, as far as the initiations that they offered at the temples, and as far as the wisdom that they offered, and as far as they guided people through day and night, through chaos and order, through the feminine and through the masculine. You can't compete with Egypt. Egypt was hardly ever disturbed. It was conquered, but it was never disturbed as the religions in the Mediterranean were disturbed by earthquakes and by a meteor, and by an ice age and by high water. Egypt remained intact, and it just developed and developed and developed. And the theology developed in many different ways, and depending on which city you were living in or what town you were living in. You had your own main gods, but they were all connected with these centers of Heliopolis, Memphis, and Karnak. These were the 3 centers of theology. Today, if you want to study theology, you go to Tübingen, or you go to Yale, or to Oxford, maybe, or to a divinity school, Notre Dame. Back then, if you wanted to learn what your ancestors understood to be the truth and be the source of everything, even before everything existed, the pre-primordial states, they could explain it to you in Heliopolis, they could explain it to you in Memphis, they could explain it to you in Karnak. So what did we do? Well, if we look at the symbol of life here, we have here the upper center, and we have 3 triangles symbolizing the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, a triad. And what we quickly realized is that our visit to the pyramid was a visit to the upper triangle. We were completely in the crown chakra. The pyramids are a mystery. There are thousands of books written about them, many, many theories, all of them probably partly true. But if you connect with the pyramids, some people say they're graves and some people say they're much more than graves. They're portals, as it were, to absolute cosmic energy, to the gods, where the gods can flow over the pyramids into Heliopolis and into Memphis, and where we can go through the pyramids and go to the gods. It's a two-way street. And that's the crown chakra. And we were in the crown chakra. You could feel that you were just being pulled way, way into the everything. And then we, as I said in Cairo, we also made a visit to Heliopolis and to Memphis. And where you are there is you're completely in the third eye. Because then you're completely into wisdom teachings. And your third eye is filled with wisdom teachings of unbelievably profound wisdom teachings. And you can feel that. Yeah? And you're right in the third eye. And that's what we did for the first few days. And then we hired a minibus. And this minibus, we wanted to get to Luxor. But we wanted to visit, on our way to Luxor, we wanted to visit the city that Akhenaten built, and also a city called Hermopolis, where they had an 8-god system. Google it if you can. Hermopolis comes from Hermes, Thoth. And there they have 4 female gods with snake heads and 4 male gods with frog heads. There's very little left there because it was pillaged after the Arab Spring. And we went to Akhenaten city, which was built in the middle of nowhere. And then we spent the night on our way down, and we made a visit to Abu Dos. This is the Osiris temple. My first visit, the first visit for all of us there. And that was extraordinary. Where were we? We were in the heart chakra. We were completely in the heart chakra. Then we made a movement down through, maybe even Hermopolis is a throat chakra. I have to think about that. But we were in the heart chakra. Abu Das, where is one of the most gorgeous temples you can visit in the world, and filled with mysteries, filled with levels going down, going up. Has a grave, a tomb for Osiris, and it's one of the most powerful places in Egypt and probably in the world. And we did that, and then we continued on and made it just before they closed. When we were there for 2 hours. Dendera. This is the Hathor temple. And Hathor temple is also the heart chakra, but it's a female temple. So you have the male temple, maybe Osiris pulling you up, and you have the Hathor temple pulling you down. Dendera, the Hathor temple, is an unbelievable temple filled with Hathor, the cow god. The god who is celebrated, it's often equated as Aphrodite, but she is also a god who's in charge of childbirth and sexuality, in charge of fertility, and she is, they built a beautiful temple for her there. And this temple is filled with even more mysteries. There are so many stairs going up, some straight, the highway, and some going in corners going up, and some going down, and a ladder going up to a secret room. And also then you can go down below the Holy of Holies and go down into another secret room. And around the Hathor temple there are 3 birth houses, one for Isis, one that the Greeks built, I think, and one that the Romans built. There's the remains of a church there, a Byzantine church there. And they had also the Hathor temple, basically rooms where you could come and sleep and spend a night or two if you wanted to have an encounter or a teaching from Hathor. And that's, here you were in beauty, here you were in beauty, you were in power, you were in balance, the combination between Abydos and Dendera. And then we continued down after Dendera, we came down into Luxor. In Luxor, many of you might have been there, you're in the solar plexus completely. You have half of Luxor is built on one side of the Nile. That's where the graves are, the west side, and on the other side, the east side, you have the Karnak Temple and the Luxor Temple. And these temples are filled with life, filled with life. Sekhmet is there. Osiris has a temple there. Amun-Ra, the main god from Karnak, is there. There's a temple for Mut, Amun God's wife. There's a temple for their son, Kansu. And it's on the depictions of the wall, it's all about war. It's all about the triumphs they made over the Nubians, over the people from Lebanon, and it's all about daily life. And then on the other side you have these unbelievable graves, the Valley of the Kings and the Valley of the Queens, and also some other temples. Or not temples, they're more of a tribute to the life of Hatshepsut and others. And there you are, right in the solar plexus. Your daily life is filled with spirituality, is filled with everything. Filled with food, filled with joy, filled with wine, filled with ceremonies, filled with festivals. And you're in the solar plexus. And how much are you in the solar plexus? You're absolutely in the solar plexus. And then we spent 5 days there, 5-6 days there, and then we hired a bus to take us down to Aswan. And on the way down to Aswan, we visited 2 temples, which you might well know. One is Edfu. And Edfu is unique insofar that it's built on the other side of the Nile, where all the other temples are built on the west side of the Nile. And it's for the falcon god Horus. Horus is the child of Osiris and Isis, and Horus is the one who fought for 80 years against his uncle Set to take over the reins of Egypt. And the Horus temple is profoundly connected with the Hathor temple, because Hathor and Horus were a pair. They actually had a child. Happy. Fluska, the river god. And the Edfu temple is one of the most beautiful, they say it's the most beautiful temple in Egypt, architecturally. It's perfectly harmoniously built, and it's also filled with mysteries. Stairs that go up, stairs that go down. And you are completely in this birth of Hathor. And then the next stop was Koambu, which is a double temple, one of them for the crocodile god, what's his name, Subek, and the other one and it's a medicine temple in any case. Very, very powerful temple, completely different than Edfu in the sense that it is not harmonic at all. It's filled with teachings over childbirth and alligators and so forth. Very much worth visiting. And then we went down to Aswan. And why? Aswan is where they have Philae. It's the temple for Isis. And theoretically we should have visited that first and then Hathor. Because when you come down to Isis here, you're down in the root chakra where the birth of Hathor takes place. And Hathor is born out of the womb of Isis. And the temple that they built in Aswan is the biggest Isis temple in the world. And it was built below, but they had to move it because they built the Nasser Dam. And they faithfully reconstructed it on an island, what became an island. And the Isis temple is built like a woman, and you actually walk through her legs, and you come into her, and you come into the womb of Isis, which is right here, the root chakra. And out of that womb of Isis, Horus is born. Horus is the result of the 9 gods, and the end of a cycle and the start of a new cycle. So that was an incredible trip, and the reason why I give this talk now in English is because in 2 days I give the talk in German, and it's called the Enigmatic. Egypt, because Egypt is filled with living spirituality and enigmas, filled today. And just to share with you, some people say, how can that be that you can still experience in Egypt after 2,000 years of Christianity and Islam? And I tell you, in these two weeks now, 2.5 weeks I was there, you will never see people who enjoy life as much as the Egyptian. They are filled with joy. Young people, old people, sick people, poor people. I don't want to sound romantic, and I don't want to sound like I'm looking through the world through rosy, whatever it's called. But these people are still connected with the old belief system. They're still connected with ISIS. And we even heard last year that if an Islamic woman had trouble conceiving a child, she would go spend the night in the ISIS temple and would then become pregnant. And so I'll give the talk in 2 days in the German language to a public audience here. But I give this now in English before I forget it all. Oh, I wanted to say too that in these 2.5 weeks, the city of Cairo, which is filled with 9 million people or more, and then all the way down to Luxor and down to Aswan, I didn't see once or hear once a baby cry or yell. Not once, not one. This baby galore down there, but you don't hear them crying, you know. And what explains that? Maybe because everybody suffers there, and because everybody suffers, nobody suffers, or suffering and life belong together down there, which it always has. In any case, I've just planned now for next March 2020, the next trip. I decided to limit it to 1 trip per year, along with Patmos 1 time per year, and Anatolia 1 time per year, and Israel, the Holy Land, 1 time per year. And it's going to be open to German-speaking people and to English-speaking people. This trip to Egypt is an energetic travel. It's less about a seminar and much more about, like I said, a trip through the symbol of life. That means through ourselves. And it is transformative in so much that you probably won't experience yourself as the same person you are before that trip. And many of us have been to Egypt, without a doubt. And many of us, if you believe in reincarnation, have incarnated in Egypt many, many times. Partly because the spirituality was so inviting and so round and so full. And also partly because it existed and flourished over 12,000 years or longer. That many of us incarnated there many times and have roots there. Much older roots than in Christianity or than in Judaism. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam are children of the Egyptian belief system and also the Anatolia belief system. The Hellenistic and Assyrian. It didn't come out of, Christianity was not born out of nothing. It was born out of the influence of these rounder, more balanced religions. And we shouldn't forget that Jesus Christ as a child spent time in Cairo, Heliopolis or Old Cairo. Nobody knows how long. And so even the belief system that was flourishing there from ISIS and the 9 gods was very much, Jesus experienced that as a child. It was not foreign to him and he was not against it. So if you're interested in joining us next March, like I said, it'll be in English and in German, and I'd be glad to show you this land and this belief system. All right, take care, and thank you for listening, and I wish you all a very profound Easter time, and as we go into Pentecost, Pentecost, we will be together on the island of Patmos going into the book of Revelations, and that too will be in English and German. The English course will be moved to a joint course where I will teach in German and English the book of Revelations. That I'm sure that we'll have enough people, and also this is a time where we no longer identify ourselves as a nationality with a language or with a belief system. We are all one family. All right. All good blessings to you all. Take care.